Hi, my name is Kyle, and in this video I'm going to be showing you my major project, the Behemoth. So I already know there's going to be a lot of questions about my major project, and hopefully this video is able to answer most of them for you, but let's start simple now and we'll get into the more advanced stuff later. So, first things first, why did I build a set of speakers to begin with? Well, to answer that, this summer I really got into sound equipment and I wanted to build a sort of capstone project to show off everything I've learned with my research. And secondly, I know a lot of people are going to be curious on what went into making these speakers. So I made a list of everything I had to do for this project up to this point. Now don't get overwhelmed because it's such a long list. In this video, I broke everything up into parts so it won't become too much. So with that being said, let's get on to the first part, design.
We should take Bikini Bottom and push it somewhere else!
That idea may just be crazy enough to get us all killed!
So when I was first coming up with the design of these speakers, there was a few things I had to take into consideration first. First, I knew I wanted these to be floor speakers with a small footprint, so they're going to end up being pretty tall, as you can see now. Secondly, I knew from the get-go there's going to be some pretty big speakers, mainly because my dad gave me his 12-inch drivers, and because of that, I decided to use 8 inches for the mid-ranges and a 4-inch for the tweeter. So I kind of knew from the get-go there's going to be some pretty beefy boys. The next step was to actually build the enclosure in Fusion 360, which took me a whole week to do because I first had to A, learn how to use Fusion 360 because it was my first time ever making something in it, B, come up with a design that was unique and I was happy with, and C, make sure that the design was properly tuned for the drivers. This was especially hard because in my design I have 2 different chambers that need to have a certain volume of space within them. One sealed chamber for the mid-range drivers to make sure I get a clean sound out of them, and a ported chamber for the subwoofers to make sure I get that extra bass power. And luckily for me, I found a useful website, Speakerbox Lite, that did all the calculations for me on the required chamber sizes and all the other little details like the port length and the diameter and such. And with the model being done, I was able to get on to the next step, building this monstrosity. Now the first step in this escapade was actually getting the materials. Now for this, a quick trip to Home Depot and our school's workshop was called for. After that was actually cutting out all the needed pieces, and for this I first laid out all the parts in Fusion 360 to map out exactly how I needed to cut everything, and then next I went to the school's CNC machine to cut out the front and back faces because circles are hard, and the rest I just went to my school's workshop and cut it out there. And when that was said and done, the last thing was actually assembling everything, which led me to learning how to use the workshop's nail gun. Luckily, I didn't die. Now with the main bodies finished, I was able to take them back home over winter break and work on the next step with my dad, sealing the enclosures and building the crossovers.
Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! SpongeBob, careful! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob! Careful, SpongeBob!
Patrick, the lid's already off.
Oh.
Now before we can get into sealing the enclosures, we first had to attach the front faces, but before we can get into that, I had to cut and glue on the PVC port tubes. After doing all that, we, and by that I mean Dad, sealed up the internal edges with caulk to make sure that the chambers were airtight. Now with everything drying, we moved on to the crossover. But before I explain what a crossover does, let's do a quick overview over the sound spectrum itself, and for that, I'm going to let the YouTuber HexyBase do the honors.
So the human hearing spans a bandwidth of 20 Hz to 20 kHz, the very bottom of which is referred to as the sub-bass region, covering 20 to 60 Hz. This is where the fundamental frequencies of the lowest pitch instruments tend to reside. Just above that, between 60 and 250 Hz, we have the bass region, further classified as the mid-bass and the upper bass. The fundamental frequencies of most rhythm instruments can be found along this part of the spectrum. Further up, between 250 Hz and 2 kHz, we have the lower and the upper mid-range, covering the low-order harmonics of the mid-tone instruments. This is also where the bass instruments gain a lot of their presence. The upper 3¼ octaves are referred to as the treble. This includes the lower treble between 2 and 3½ kHz, which defines the attack of the percussive and the rhythm instruments, mid-treble between 3½ and 6 kHz, which gives the mid-tone instruments their presence and carries most of the vocal sibilants, and finally the upper treble, also known as the brilliant, which contains the upper harmonics for the percussive and the mid-tone instruments. Alright, grab a screenshot and back on topic.
So as you can see, sound has a large range of frequencies you can come in, but drivers are usually made to only excel in a certain group of it. We can see this in examples of my tweeters and mid-ranges, looking at the graphs here for how they perform over the entire spectrum. This is where a crossover comes in. A crossover takes the single input stream of all frequencies and, depending on how the circuit was made, filters and separates it so the desired frequencies are outputted to the desired drivers. In a Behemoth, I have a three-way crossover with the crossover points listed here. Now, with that being said, I can proudly say that these speakers will be able to replicate the sound that I want them to and produce it at a very high scale, because the sounds will be going to the driver that is best suited for it. Now, with that said and done, all I had to do was wire it up, and time to go on to the final step. We are finally in the last steps of this project so far. So first things first, as soon as the drivers came in, I installed them. That was very simple, just drilling. A little bit of cutting for the tweeter because the shape was a little odd. After that, I wood puttied the gaps that needed to be filled in, sanded everything down, trimmed the edges a little bit, had a bit of overhang, and the only thing now is just prepping them for painting. But I don't know if I'm going to be doing that. This unfinished look is kind of growing on me. But with that being said and done, that's all I have for this video. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Peace.